Students, a very warm welcome to CBC classes. In this session, we are going to discuss about some exercise questions and homework based questions. Okay, so we have already learned about animal tissue. So we are going to discuss questions about animal tissues, various animal tissue questions over here. Okay, so here the very first question is about bone marrow. So we have discussed bone in connective tissue. Yes, we have discussed about connective tissue. The connective tissue consists of three types of tissue: loose areolar tissue, dense connective tissue, and we have discussed about specialized connective tissue, in which bone is a example. So we are discussing basically about animal tissue, and we are going to discuss about questions, exercise question based on muscle, connective tissue, specialized connective tissue, and we are going to discuss some questions about nervous system. Okay, so these are the questions that we are going to discuss primarily in this session. So our first question is about bone and muscles, bone marrow here. Okay, so bone marrow in some bone is important for production of RBCs, breakdown of RBCs, production of WBCs, and breakdown of WBCs. In your exercise, the answer might vary. Okay, I'm going to explain. So bone marrow is present. So if you see the bone, this is the structure of the bone. It is very hard and the ends are broad, which is called as epiphysis actually. Okay, and in the center of the bone we have a marrow cavity. Okay, so this is called as bone marrow. This marrow is deep brown in color. Okay, so little bit variation of color I'm going to show over here. Okay, so this is having a different color. These are having stem cells. They have stem cells. And what is the role of stem cells? Stem cells form various types of blood cells. This include RBCs, that means red blood cells, and it results in formation of WBCs, white blood cells, and platelets. Okay, all these three types of cells are formed in bone marrow. Okay, so if the question is bone marrow in some bones is important for production of RBCs as well as production of WBCs, and why only in some bones? Because in long bones the capacity to generate RBCs will be limited when the human being is in the baby form, which means initial stages of the development. Long bones can also form RBCs, but in later stages, after adolescence, after puberty, what happens? The only bones that form blood components are sternum, ribs, and vertebral column. Okay, these bones are present at the center part of our body. If you see, sternum is present over here and the ribs are attached, and vertebral column which is present at the dorsal side. So the production of RBCs and production of WBCs both takes place in bone marrow, and they originate from the stem cells that are present in the bone marrow. So here the answer is going to be A, that is 1 and 3. Okay, both are the answers, but in your worksheet the answer is only production of RBC. That is not true. Only not production of RBC, production of WBCs also takes place in certain extent, takes place in bone marrow. So this is what happens. Bone marrow in some bone is important for production of RBCs. Yesterday we have discussed about bone marrow, and bone marrow is where RBCs are formed or matured and WBCs are formed. So breakdown of RBCs takes place in which organ? It is spleen. Spleen, after completion of life cycle of RBCs, the RBCs enters the spleen and the breakdown of RBCs takes place. Breakdown of RBCs. Okay, so breakdown of RBCs takes place in spleen. So this is very important point that you have to remember. Okay, spleen is the organ where breakdown of RBCs takes place. That is the reason it is called as graveyard of RBCs. This you are going to learn in your future classes. So graveyard of RBCs is a spleen organ which is present dorsal to the stomach. So this is our first question. Now we are moving to the second question. Okay. The second question. Each muscle is composed of many long cylindrical fibers. Yesterday we have discussed that these fibers are called as muscle fibers. The cells of the muscles are called as muscle fibers. Okay, long cylindrical fibers. So they are talking about muscle fibers. They are arranged parallel arrays. Fibers are composed of numerous fine fibrils. So these fibers, as I have told you, this is a muscle. For suppose this is a muscle, striated muscle. They are formed from the long muscle cells, and these muscles have fibrils, fibers, many fine fibers. They are from the cells, muscle cells are formed from fibers, and these are called as option microfilaments, second myofibrils, third microtubules, and fourth sarcoplasm. So we have discussed the plasma, cytoplasm of the muscle cell is called as sarcoplasm. So here they are not talking about fibers. Microtubules which are present in flagella and cilia, okay, they cause contraction and relaxation movement. So these are microtubules. Microfilaments are present in the different structure. Now coming to myofibrils, these are the fibers, thin fibers, fine fibers that are present in muscle fibers. So this is the myofibrils. Now going into the next question, question number 3rd. In a typical muscle such as the bicep, so here you have to remember that muscles that are they are discussing are biceps, where the biceps are present on our arms. Okay, this muscle is a bicep muscle. Muscle fibers are bundled together in parallel manner. If you have discussed or if you have read in your worksheet, okay, or in your CBSE planner, you can see that muscles are described as 3 types. Okay, so these 3 muscles are striated muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. Striated muscles are the muscles which have striations, light and dark bands, and these muscles are voluntary in action, and they have another specific characteristic feature that they are attached to the bones. So skeletal muscles, right? So these muscles are arranged parallel to each other. Okay, now what about smooth muscles? They are spindle shaped or fusiform shaped cells. Okay, they are not arranged parallelly. These are smooth muscles. Now coming to cardiac muscles, they are also arranged parallelly. Okay, but they are branched. So cardiac muscles as well as, so here you can see the parallel arrangement is seen in striated muscles as well as in cardiac muscles. So both striated muscles and cardiac muscles have parallel arrangement of myofibrils, or you can say muscle fibers, right? So which type? In typical muscles such as bicep, muscle fibers are together to each other. So here the bicep muscles are skeletal muscles or categorized under striated muscles, and striated muscles are always arranged in parallel manner. So the options over here: stripped, smooth, cardiac, and none of these. So here the answer is going to be striated or stripped. Stripped, which means they have straps, right? Like a zebra has a dark and light bands, these muscles also have dark and light bands. Okay, so these muscles, striated muscles, bicep muscles or tricep muscles, all are voluntary muscles. Okay, they are arranged parallel to each other. Okay, they have striations Light and dark bands are present, alternate light and dark bands are present on these muscles, okay, muscle fibers. So the answer over here is going to be yes. Now going to the next question over here, the fourth question, which of the following statement is false about the muscles? So you have to see the false statement, wrong statement, not the correct statements. So whenever there is this type of question, just mark false part. Why? Because we generally get confused with the right and we generally mark it as correct and it will go to the negative mark, right? So first option will be the wall of blood vessels, stomach, intestine and striated muscles. So wall of blood vessels, stomach and intestine contains striated muscles. Is it true? No, because stomach, intestine and walls of blood vessels are made up of smooth muscles, not striated muscles. So as I have already classified smooth muscles, striated muscles, okay. Striated muscles are also called as skeletal muscles and they have voluntary action, right? We have discussed. So they have voluntary action. Now when you compare with the smooth muscles, they have involuntary action. What about voluntary action and involuntary action? We have discussed this very clearly. The action that is controlled by our will is called as voluntary action. The action which is not controlled by our will is called as involuntary actions. Involuntary actions can be seen in respiration, breathing, or can be seen in digestion by peristaltic movement, right? So peristalsis, okay, these kind of movements are done by smooth muscles. If you see stomach and intestine, they have peristaltic movement. Why they do have to do peristaltic movement? They have to contract and relax so that the food can go to the bottom of the stomach and then the food can go from esophagus to stomach, stomach to small intestine to large intestine and undigested food material can be excreted. So for the movement of the food from mouth to esophagus, esophagus to stomach, stomach to small intestine and large intestine, what we need? We need peristaltic movement, that is rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the muscles. Okay. Now when the rhythmic contraction of muscles takes place, the food that is from buccal cavity to esophagus and again to the small and large intestine, so this kind of action is involuntary. This is not controlled by our will, right? So here the blood vessels, the wall of the blood vessels, okay, the blood has to flow, right? The wall of the blood vessels or stomach and intestine consist of smooth muscles, not striated muscles. So this is a false statement. So write it over there. It is a false statement. Now comes the second one. The smooth muscle fibers are fusiform. Now what do you understand by fusiform? Yesterday we haven't discussed about fusiform. Now let me discuss the smooth muscle characteristic features. Okay, smooth muscle. Instead of fusiform we used a terminology that is spindle shaped cells. Okay, so here fusiform, which means the shape of the muscle fibers are tapering at the end. Okay, tapering can be seen at the end. This is a tapering, okay, and the central part is wide, okay, and they are uninucleate. So this kind of shape, tapering at the ends and broad at the center, is called as fusiform shape. Okay, fusiform shape. The smooth muscles are having spindle or fusiform shape. Okay, so here, yes, the smooth muscle fibers are having fusiform shape. The intestine, stomach or blood vessels have smooth muscles, not striated muscles. Cell junctions hold smooth muscle fiber together and they are bundled together in a connective tissue sheath. Okay, because sarcolemma is absent over here, it is not present properly. Okay, these muscle fibers, spindle shaped muscle fibers, are held together, tightly held together, a special connective tissue sheath. Okay, they are held together by a special connective sheath. So this is also true. And both 1 and 2. So 1 is wall of blood vessel, stomach, intestine contains striated muscle, which is a false statement, but second one is a true statement and third one is a true statement. So what is your answer? The answer is simple. Yes, first one. The wall of blood vessel, stomach and intestine contains striated muscle is a false statement. So you have to mark the false statement over here. Okay. Now going to the next one. Question number 5th. Which of the following statement is correct about cardiac muscle? So again mark this correct statement. So whenever you are attempting NEET paper or any kind of exam or exercise questions, always mark the important part that is correct about cardiac muscle. So this is the most important part of the question. Now the options are: it is present in the heart only. Yes, it is present in the heart only. True statement. Now the plasma membrane of the adjacent cardiac cell interlocked at intercalated disc. So let us see about, or let us discuss about cardiac muscle. So as I have told you, what are the characteristic features of the cardiac muscles? They are also cylindrical shaped. They have multinucleate. They also have light and dark bands, and they have involuntary functions, the function that is not controlled by our own will. These are the characteristic features, and we have discussed another important characteristic feature, that the cardiac muscles are branched. Now let us see what is the structure of the cardiac muscles. So if you see, they are cylindrical, they are interconnected. These muscles are interconnected through branches. Okay, through different branches, these muscle fibers are interconnected. So this makes the exclusive feature. This branching makes the exclusive feature. Why? Because if some nerve ending is connected to this muscle, so this muscle is under contraction, which means the stimulus is transferred to this muscle directly through these branches, and these branches are called as intercalated disc. Intercalated disc. So they are called as intercalated disc. So these branches which are connecting the cardiac muscles are called as intercalated disc. And what is the property of the intercalated disc? It transfers the stimuli in a faster way. Okay, so the contraction can happen uniformly. If this muscle is contracting, this will also contract, and third muscle will also be contract, and the muscles which are joined together will also contract. And where these cardiac muscles are present? They are present around the heart, which causes contraction and relaxation, which causes pumping of the heart. So the heart continuously works, which means they are continuously contracting and relaxing, and for this they need an immediate connection. So these branches are present, they are called as intercalated disc. Now the intercalated disc contain desmosomes, which means the junction between one muscle cell to the other cell is desmosome, and we have discussed about desmosome junctions, that they are plasma extension of one cell to other cell. If you see, this is the one cell, okay, and this will be the other cell. So the extension, plasma extension of the one cell to the other cell is called as desmosomes. Okay, adhering, they are very closely attached to each other, muscle cells. The space that I am showing, there is no space between them. Okay, and gap junctions is present, direct connection. If you see, these intercalated discs are presenting a direct junction for cytoplasmic exchange of minerals, water, nutrition. Okay, so cardiac muscle, if you draw a cardiac muscle, okay, so this is the cardiac muscle which have branches with the adjacent, okay, this is how the junction. So cytoplasmic exchange, the direct cytoplasmic exchange can be seen because of this gap junction. So this is also a true statement. Cardiac muscles are only present in the heart. That is the reason they got the term, right, cardiac. Then this intercalated disc is also correct statement, second statement. What about third statement? It is also correct. Why? Because the cardiac muscles are closely attached to each other to desmosomes or gap junctions. Gap junctions allow the cardiac cells to contract as a unit. I have already mentioned why they have cytoplasmic connection, because if one muscle is contracting, all the other muscles also contract at the same time. Okay, so which means the conduction of impulse should be simultaneous. Okay, so here the gap junctions allow the cardiac muscles to contract as a unit. That is also true statement. This is also a true statement. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all the 4 statements are correct over here. Hope you have understood the explanation. The cardiac muscles are branched. They are only present in the heart first. They are branched, and these branches are called as intercalated disc. These intercalated discs have junctions, cellular junctions, which is desmosomes, which was seen in epithelial tissue, right? Now desmosomes can also be seen over here. These adhering and gap junctions, which means they keep it very close, and the gap junctions allow the passage of impulse in the format of ions, sodium potassium pumps they have. Okay, so the ions can be clearly exchanged, and all the muscles, if this muscle is in contraction, the second muscle will also be in contraction. Why? Because they are connected with the channels. Okay, these channels are gap junctions or intercalated disc that they have. Okay, so all the statements are correct. So here our answer is going to be the first one. Okay, now coming to the next question, sixth question. By the figure itself you can figure out. Okay, go through the figure. So this is which type of muscle? Figure A, figure B and figure C. Closely monitor the diagram. So what about figure A? What is figure A? What is figure B? And what is figure C? Write it down. Then come to the options. Now let us see these options. 1, 2, 3, 4. So according to you, A is the diagram of skeletal muscles, and skeletal muscle is also called as striated muscle. So if you have written A, figure A is a striated muscle, then your answer is correct. Now B, if you see, the cells are having spindle shaped cells, or you can say fusiform cells like this. Okay, fusiform shaped cells is only present in smooth muscles or non-striated muscles, or we can also say involuntary muscles. But cardiac muscle is also involuntary. So here you have to specifically mention about smooth muscle. So your B, if your B is smooth muscle, then it is a correct answer. Now what about figure C? Here you can clearly see the branches. See this intercalated branches that are present, and striations also present. So what are the characteristic feature of cardiac muscles? The cardiac muscles are cylindrical muscle fibers arranged parallel to each other, but they are connected with intercalated disc, or you can say they have branches, right? So these branches are connecting one muscle fiber to the other muscle fiber. So here the figure C is cardiac muscle. So striated or skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, then comes cardiac muscle. So if you have written A, B, C, striated, smooth and cardiac, then your answer is absolutely correct. And then you just have to search over here. Here the smooth muscle, this is a wrong option. Cardiac muscle, this is again wrong. By seeing the A option you can tell. A is striated muscles, let us go forward. B is smooth muscle and C is cardiac muscles, which means absolutely correct. Okay, A is involuntary muscles. No, the striated muscles are voluntary. They are under our control, so they are called as voluntary muscles, not involuntary. And B are involuntary muscles, and C is also involuntary muscle because C is a cardiac muscle. So this was a very simple question. Now let us discuss the seventh question. Myofibrils are contract muscle fibers, striated muscle fiber, structural component of all muscle fiber, or skeletal muscle fiber. If you see the contracted muscle fiber, which means the contraction happens, the muscle fibers contract, okay, that's what he is talking about. So the option is not correct, not correctly framed. Striated muscle fibers, which means he is talking about voluntary muscles that are skeletal muscles. So striated and skeletal are one and the same thing. The second one is structural component of muscle fiber. So all muscle fiber consist of myofibrils. Now we have discussed the muscle fiber, right? So this is muscle fiber or muscle cell. They consist of fine thread-like structures within them. These thread-like structures are called as myofibrils. These myofibrils are present in all types of cells, that is striated, smooth muscles consist of this myofibrils, and cardiac muscles also consist of myofibrils. These myofibrils are made up of actin and myosin that you are going to learn in your advanced classes. So here you have understood about myofibrils. These are thin and minute fibers which are present throughout the muscle fiber or muscle cell. Okay, so here the answer is going to be structural component of all muscle fibers. It is present in the striated, it is present in smooth, and it is present in cardiac. Now next question. Skeletal muscles are striated in appearance, striated in appearance, smooth in appearance. Third option is involuntary muscles, and the fourth option is 1 and 3. So this question I have already discussed about skeletal muscles, I have discussed about smooth muscles, and we have discussed about cardiac muscles. Now this features resemble skeletal muscles, appearance. So this is your turn to answer the question. So here the skeletal muscles are striated in appearance. What is striations? Striations means regular, in a regular width. There is a bands, light and dark bands that are present. Okay, different types of colors are present in a regular pattern. Okay, if you see, this is the dark color and this is the light, dark, and light. This dark and light appearance causes skeletal muscles to appear as a striations. Okay, so the answer is going to be striated. Now what about second? Smooth in appearance. They don't appear smooth. These are not smooth in appearance. The smooth in appearance is smooth muscles which have fusiform shape. Okay, now because of these striations, they are rough in texture. The skeletal muscles are rough in texture. Involuntary muscles. The striated muscles are called as skeletal muscles because they are joined to the bones. These muscles are attached to the bones. That is the reason they are called as skeletal muscles. And why? And what is the other function that they have? They have voluntary action. Why it is called as voluntary action? So as I have shown you example of my wrist, I can move my wrist, I can move my fingers. If I want to move my one finger, I will move only my thumb. If I want to move my index finger, then I'm going to move my index finger only, or complete wrist I want to move. So this is under my control, my will. So this action is called as voluntary action, and skeletal muscles have voluntary action. Smooth muscles on the other side have involuntary action. Cardiac muscles on the other side have involuntary action. We are not controlling our heart, we are not controlling the digestion of food, or we are not controlling respiration, we are not controlling excretion. Okay, these are having peristaltic movement or a movement of inhaling and exhaling. These are not under control. So smooth muscles are involuntary muscles. Heartbeat, that is continuous pumping of heart. Okay, this is also involuntary action. Now coming to the next question. 9th, involuntary muscle fibers in the human body are found in heart, blood vessels, intestine, all of these. So involuntary muscles, as I have discussed just now, they are present in heart, they are present in blood vessels, they are present in intestine, they are present in the respiratory system, they are present in the excretory system. Okay, so the heart, blood vessels and intestine consist of involuntary muscle fibers. Heart consists of cardiac muscle. Okay, heart consists of cardiac muscle. Now coming to blood vessels and intestine consist of smooth muscles, right? And cardiac muscles and smooth muscles have involuntary action. They have involuntary action. So question number 9 over here, it is involuntary action. Now coming to the question number 10, consider the following statements. All involuntary muscles are smooth in appearance. All straightened muscles are voluntary muscles. So all involuntary muscles are smooth in appearance. Yes. No, not always. All straightened muscles are voluntary muscles. So all involuntary muscles are not smooth. Why? Because if you see, cardiac muscles again have light and dark bands. Okay, so smooth muscles don't have striations. They are spindle shaped uninucleate and they don't have striation. Light and dark bands are absent. Whereas cardiac muscle, okay, they have light and dark bands. They have light and dark bands. Because of these light and dark bands, these muscles appears to be rough surface, whereas these muscles appears to be smooth. Why? Because they don't have light and dark bands are absent. Okay, that is the reason they are called as smooth muscles. The surface of the muscles are very smooth, whereas cardiac muscles are striated and skeletal muscles are striated. So, and both smooth muscles and cardiac muscles are involuntary. The function of both are involuntary, not are under control. But smooth muscles doesn't have light and dark bands, which means they are smooth in appearance, whereas cardiac muscles have light and dark bands, so they appear rough in appearance. So first statement, the involuntary muscles are smooth in appearance, okay, is false. Now coming to all straightened muscles are voluntary muscles. Again, this is a wrong statement. If you see, all straightened muscles, which means striations is present on the cardiac muscle as well as skeletal muscle. If the statement all skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles, then it is the correct. So here in your books, A and B are false. Both A and B are false. Why? Because the striated muscles, which means cardiac muscles and skeletal muscles, they are having voluntary muscles. They are voluntary muscles. No, cardiac muscle is a involuntary muscle. So both A and B statements are false. So here you have to understand this. Now coming back to assertion reason questions, consider the following assertion. You have to read these reason and assertion reason. Okay, let us see how to attempt these kind of questions. Assertion: ligaments connect bone to bone. Reason: ligament contain both collagen and elastin fibers. So here this is the statement 1, which means ligament. What is ligament doing? It is connecting two bones. They are generally present in the joints, right? So ligaments connect bone to bone. That is correct. Reason: ligament contain both collagen and elastin fibers. That is the reason they are able to connect one bone to other. Okay, so they have both white fibrous tissue and yellow fibrous tissue. That is collagen and elastin. Collagen is white fibrous tissue and elastin is yellow fibrous tissue. So ligament contains both yellow and white fibrous tissue. So yes, the both statements are correct and reason is explaining the assertion. So here the answer is going to be both assertion and the reason are true and the reason is correct explanation of the assertion. So here the answer is going to be the first one. If both statements are true but it is not explaining, the reason is not explaining the assertion, then assertion reason are true but the reason is not explaining the correct. If assertion is true, then it is going to be third one, and reason is false. If both are false, then it is going to be fourth. So always choose these questions, these options wisely. Okay. So here now let us continue with the second question. Consider the following. Assertion: irregular connective tissue is tissue repair, helps in tissue repair. That is correct. After, if you see in the skin, in the arm also, just beneath the epithelial tissue there is a basement membrane, and just beneath the basement membrane we have connective tissue. Which type of connective tissue? Areolar connective tissue. So this consists of various types of cells, that is fibroblast, mast cells. Fibroblast, what is the function of fibroblast? They form fibers, and these fibers are required for tissue repair, right? So what is the answer over here? The areolar connective tissue help in tissue repair? Yes. And this areolar connective tissue consists of various components like collagen fibers, elastin fibers, fibroblast cells, mast cells, macrophages. We have discussed about this. So here the fibroblast cells and mast cells are present, and these fibroblast cells are forming the fibers which are helpful for the tissue healing, okay, clot formation. So here the answer is going to be both assertion and reason are true. And the reason here, the reason is because this connective tissue consists of fibroblasts and mast cells, the healing is going to be faster. And if in a tissue injury, what happens? When a bacteria or any further substance are entering, these mast cells or macrophages kill those foreign substances. So here assertion is true and reason is also true, and reason is correctly explaining. Why? Because areolar connective tissue consists of fibers, and these fibers are formed from the fibroblast. So assertion and reason are true, and the reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. Now coming to the next question, question number third. Adipose tissue act as insulator. Correct. Why? Because it consists of adipocytes which store fat, right? And this fat provides insulation from cold or less temperatures, right? So this adipose tissue is generally modified areolar tissue. It is a modified areolar tissue which is protecting our sensitive organs. So here it stores glycogen in its cell. The reason? No, it is providing insulation because its cells consist of fat. And what are the cells of the adipose tissue? Adipocytes. Yes, though these adipocytes consist of fats or lipids, not glycogen. Glycogen is a stored form of the glucose, okay, carbohydrates that is present in the animal tissue, okay, but glycogen is not the answer should be fat. But here the glycogen is given, so the reason is false, okay. So what is the answer? The second one is assertion and reason are true, but reason is not correct explanation. No, reason is false. So assertion is true, but reason is false. So the answer is going to be this. Adipose tissue act as insulator. Correct. True. True statement. But this is a false statement. Now coming to the next question. Assertion and reason again. Assertion: cartilage is flexible but avascular. A true statement, which means cartilage consists of fibers, that is the reason it is flexible. The matrix is flexible but avascular. It doesn't have any kind of blood supply. Okay. Now the reason should explain the part, the assertion. It lacks blood vessels. Yeah, it lacks blood vessels. That is the reason it is called as avascular. Avascular. Vascular, which means it has blood vessels. Veins, arteries are present. If veins and arteries are absent or capillaries are absent, then it is called as avascular. And rich in calcium salts. So the reason over here is also true. Okay. So cartilage lacks blood vessels and rich in calcium salts. It also consists, like bone, it also consists of calcium salts. The bone have higher amount of calcium salts, whereas cartilage have lesser amount of calcium salts. So here the reason should be about flexibility. The flexible is because of having elastin and collagen fibers. So that was not explained. Both statements are true, but this reason is not explaining the statement 1. So our option is going to be both assertion and reason are true, but the reason is not a correct explanation. Okay, here we have to tell about flexibility, the reason of flexibility, why they are flexible, because they consist of fibers and they consist of a protein. Flexibility is because of a protein, that is chondrin protein. This is because of chondrin protein the cartilage is flexible, and they haven't mentioned about chondrin or any other fibers. So this is a wrong statement. So this is a statement, correct statement, but it is not a correct explanation. Which of the following statements are correct? Again, they are asking about correct statement. Cartilage contains chondrocytes. True, they consist of chondrocytes. Ligaments are elastic in nature. True, ligaments are elastic in nature. Bone matrix is made up of collagen and calcium salts. True, it consists of collagen matrix, and calcium salts are higher in amount, like 60 to 70% of calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate is present. So they have high mineral amount, that is the reason they are stiff. And adipose tissue transport oxygen, which is a wrong statement. Adipose tissue doesn't transport oxygen, it stores the fat. Who transport oxygen? Blood, RBCs. RBCs are the one which transport oxygen. So here the fourth statement is false. The first 2, 3 are correct. So what will be the answer? The very first option, if you see 1, 2, 3 statements are correct, which means cartilage contains chondrocytes and ligaments are elastic in nature. Bone matrix is made up of collagen and calcium salt. All these 3 statements are correct, but the adipose tissue carrying transport is wrong. Now question number 6. Identify the incorrect statement. Bone has lacune containing osteocytes. True. Areolar tissue lacks a matrix. That is a false statement. See, we have discussed about the lacunes. Okay, we have discussed about Haversian system. The lamella of the bone is present in a concentric circles. Okay, during these circles, the matrix is laid in a concentric circles. They have cells. Okay, they have small spaces between them. Okay, these are osteoblast cells or osteocyte cells, which form the matrix of the bone. That is, the bone consists of calcium carbonate, matrix consists of calcium carbonate, ostin protein, fibers, right? So bone has lacunae. These are the spaces that consist of osteocytes. So that are called as lacunae. These are called as lacunae. Okay, lacunae. So this is a true statement. Now coming to the second, areolar tissue lacks a matrix. It consists more amount of matrix. Okay, so lacking a matrix, which means it is a false statement. Blood is a specialized connective tissue. True, again it is true. Adipose tissue cushion organ. Adipose tissue is generally protecting the sensitive organs. It is protecting the eyeball, it is protecting the spinal cord, brain, and many sensitive organs. It is providing a cushion. So what does a cushion do? If you punch on a cushion, all the stress is taken by the cushion. So when some external force is affecting the organ, this cushion, this adipose tissue takes all the stress and distributes all the force, and it distributes evenly. So this is the reason adipose tissue is called as cushion organ. So what is your answer? So here the incorrect statement has to be identified. The statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is false, statement 3 is correct, and statement 4 is correct. So statement 2 is incorrect. So the first one, 2 only, is the again a correct answer, which means it is a false statement. Now match the following. Areolar tissue. So column C, column 1. Column 1 consists of areolar tissue, tendon, ligament, and blood. Now by seeing itself, you can tell areolar tissue is a connective tissue, right? Tendon and ligament. Tendon connects muscle to bone. Ligament connects bone to bone. And what about blood? It is a specialized connective tissue. So here the column 2 consists of all the options that I have just told you. So areolar tissue, here what does areolar tissue do? The areolar tissue is a loose connective tissue type. Okay, it consists of more of matrix. It consists of fibers like collagen fibers, elastin fibers, reticular fibers. It consists of fibroblasts. It consists of hyaluronic acid in the matrix, mucopolysaccharides, polysaccharides. Okay, so here the areolar tissue is loose connective tissue. The first one, this is the correct answer. Now coming to tendon, connects the bone to muscle. The B will be having third. C, ligament, which connects one bone to bone. And about blood, blood is a specialized connective tissue. Now when you have matched, just check the options. Over here the A consists of 2, B consists of 3, C consists of 1 and D consists of 4, which is the correct answer. So A, areolar tissue, has loose connective tissue, and tendon have bone to muscle joining, ligament have bone to bone, and blood have specialized connective tissue. So this is the answer over here. Now second match the following. Column 1 and column 2, read carefully. Column 1 consists of collagen, adipose, cartilage and osteocytes. So what are the function of collagen? It is a structural protein, abundant protein in animal kingdom. Adipose tissue consists of adipocytes, or adipose tissue, what is the function? It stores the fat. Cartilage is a specialized connective tissue, right? It consists of cells like chondrocytes, which form the matrix, as well as it contains protein like chondrin, which causes the cartilage to be flexible. Now coming to osteocytes. Osteocytes are called as bone cells. So osteocytes are bone cells which form the matrix of the bone. So here the collagen is a structural protein, abundant protein. Adipose tissue is a fat tissue. Cartilage is consisting of chondrocytes, and osteocyte is the bone cells. So here the answer is going to be A, third, B is one option, and C is equal to 4 and D is equal to 2. So the first answer is the correct answer. So we have discussed all these concepts, and now we are going to next question 9. Which of the following is false? Adipose tissue is located mainly below the skin. True, this is the true statement because it is generally insulation. It is acting as an insulation from the external temperature. So adipose tissue is generally located under the below the skin or lining of the sensitive organs. Tendon consists of white fibrous tissue. This is also true statement. Why? Because they are very rigid, and white fibrous connective tissue consists of collagen protein, okay, which gives the thickness and rigidity. The tendons connect bone to another bone. Tendons never connect bone to bone. That is the function of ligaments, which consist of white and yellow fibers. So here the tendon connects bone to another bone is a false statement. It generally connects muscle to the bone so that the movement can take place. The muscle contract and relax. As a result, the bone moves along the muscle contraction and muscle relaxation. Now coming to ligament, which connects bone to another bone. Yes, this is a true statement. The first, second and fourth statements are true, and the false statement is the third option. Now coming to the next question. The function of dense regular connective tissue is, yes, elastic coil, encapsulation of blood vessels, binding and supporting, all of these. So the main function of dense regular tissue is binding and support. So they are forming a connecting network between different organs or different structures, and they are basically keeping them in their position. Stomach is present in the left side, liver is present on the right side. Okay, these positions, heart is present on the left, partially on the left side more, right? Lungs are present at the center in the thoracic cavity. This is done by dense regular connective tissue, which keeps the organs in their own position, in their original positions. Now this is a homework question sheet that we are discussing. So pay attention, these questions are very important. So this has to be done from your side when you are completed. Okay, then we are going to discuss the answer. So I'm going to give some time so that you can attempt these questions. Chondrocytes are found in blood, cartilage, bone, ligament. Chondrocytes, think about it, link. Chondrocytes are the cells that are present in the cartilage, yes, and these are the one which lay the matrix of the cartilage. So here the answer is going to be the, yes, cartilage. Now next question of the homework. Plasma is part of which connective tissue? Option 1, cartilage, bone, blood and areolar. Now again I am repeating the question. Plasma. The plasma is present in which type of connective tissue? It is present in blood or bone, areolar connective tissue or cartilage. Plasma is fluid part. This is the hint for you. That fluid part is present in blood. Okay, the plasma is made up of water. 90 to 92% is water, and remaining 7% is proteins, and remaining 1 to 2% consists of various minerals, glucose, amino acids. Okay, so blood consists of plasma. It's a specialized connective tissue which consists of plasma and cells. The concentration of the cells is just 45% and the majority is 50% plasma. That is the reason the blood is thick, viscous. Because solid component or cellular component is less and the liquid component is more, it appears to be thick, viscous in nature. Okay, so the answer is over here is blood. Blood consists of plasma. Now coming to the next question, question number 3. So I'm going to read this question. You are going to attempt which connective tissue act as cushion for body organs. Just in this session we have discussed the cushion of the body organs. Adipose tissue, cartilage, bone or areolar tissue. Again another hint, modified areolar tissue. It is called as modified areolar tissue. Hope you have guessed the answer by now. Yes, it is adipose tissue. Adipose is a loose connective tissue type. It is a loose connective tissue type and it is modified areolar tissue. Why it is called as modified areolar tissue? Because areolar tissue consists of different types of cells, fibroblasts, mast cells, macrophages, but it doesn't have fat cells. When the fat cells are present, then they are called as adipose tissue. This is the difference between adipose tissue and areolar tissue. So the answer is going to be adipose tissue. Cushion. Why? Because it is taking all the stress, it is distributing all the force, even and not damaging the main structure, main organ or sensitive organ. So adipose tissue is acting as a cushion to body organs. Kidneys are well protected by adipose tissue. Heart is well protected by adipose tissue. Okay, our abdomen is very well protected by adipose tissue. Okay, so this adipose tissue is generally preventing from external force injury, external stress injury to the sensitive organs. Okay, now coming to the next part. Which of the following form the supporting framework of organs? Here the supporting framework, which means the organs are very sensitive, hollow structures or sensitive tissue. Okay, they doesn't have any bone structures, they are made up of muscles and epithelial tissue, right? Now these muscles and epithelial tissue, a mass of muscle cells, need to be placed in their own position. They should not come outside or they should not fall, right? They should be placed in their own position. For that they require some kind of tissue that is called as connective tissue basically, and particularly we talk about dense connective tissue or areolar connective tissue. Okay, this dense and regular connective tissue or irregular connective tissue consists of fibers, that is reticulate fibers, which keep them in their own position. If the position of the stomach is on the left side, the left side stomach doesn't come to the right side. Okay, it cannot move from one place to other. The organs cannot move. Why? Because they are present in their own position because of certain framework, supporting framework, which is reticular. They are well packed and well placed in because of reticular structure. Now, which cell engulf foreign particles in connective tissue? Again, a very interesting, important question. Macrophages, plasma cells, mast cells, and fibroblasts. So, what is your answer over here? Foreign particles in connective tissue. So, they are not talking about specialized connective tissue, they are talking about just connective tissue, which means areolar. Let us take areolar tissue. This is the basement membrane. Okay, the tissue that is present below the basement membrane. Okay, above is called as epithelial tissue. Here epithelial tissue is present. Below the basement membrane we have connective tissue. In connective tissue we have blood supply, we have fibers, various fibers are present. Okay, blood supply is there. Okay, blood supply is there, and we have nerve supply. Let us mention with the nerve supply like this. Okay, then we have different types of cells. Okay, some are macrophages, some are plasma cells, some are fibroblasts. What is the role of fibroblast cells that are present in the areolar tissue? They form fibers. And what is the mast cells doing? They secrete secretions like heparin, okay, histamine, which causes inflammation. And why inflammation is required? Whenever there is any foreign substance that is entering the body, to stop their growth, mast cells, what they do, they secrete heparin and histamine, which causes inflammation, which raises the temperature of the body. Inflammation sign is like in inflammation there is a rise in temperature, pain is seen, swelling is, edema is seen. Okay, so in inflammation what happens, the temperature increases and the bacterial or viral growth stops. That is the function of the mast cell, that is the function of fibroblasts. We are going to learn about these cells in our future classes. Okay, what about plasma cells and macrophages? The plasma cells and macrophages also have different functions. Okay, these are different and macrophages are different. We have discussed about macrophages. What they do, they engulf the foreign substance by forming a pseudopodia like extinction, and they engulf by forming a vacuole, food vacuole. What they do, they take these viral particles or bacterial particles, with the help of lysosome enzyme they break down these bacterial structure. So here the answer is going to be the macrophages. And about role of plasma cells, we are going to learn about plasma cells in our next classes. Just learn about macrophages. What they do, they engulf with the help of pseudopodia, like amoeba have pseudopodia, extinction of amoeba, they form food vacuole. Similarly, some type of WBCs, that is macrophages, which is present in tissue, basically which type of tissue, connective tissue, causes engulf of the substances. The matrix of connective tissue is secreted by macrophage, mast cell, fibroblast or plasma cells. It is by fibroblast cells. Now, which connective tissue is avascular, which means it doesn't have blood supply? This we have discussed in our previous sessions also, that connective tissue which doesn't have blood supply, areolar tissue have blood supply, bone has blood supply, but cartilage doesn't have blood supply. Hope you have guessed the correct answer over here. Now moving to the next question. Yellow elastic tissue is found primarily in tendon, ligament, cartilage or bone. Primarily it is seen in ligament. Okay, tendon consists of white fibrous tissue, ligament consists of yellow fibrous tissue and collagen fibrous tissue or white fibrous tissue, but primarily the ligament consists of yellow elastic tissue. And what is the function of ligament? Joining the bone to next adjacent bone. Now ninth, bone matrix consists of minerals, many minerals, and you must have heard about two important minerals that are present in the bone. One is calcium and another is phosphorus. This is in the form of calcium phosphate. Potassium and sodium carbonate and magnesium chloride, they are present in very small amount, but the maximum amount of the matrix is composed of 60 to 70% is in the form of calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate. Okay, now moving to the next question. Which tissue has a fluid matrix? This question is for you. Bone, cartilage, blood or ligament? So we have discussed the answer earlier also. Fluid matrix is present in, the plasma is present in, yes, blood. I know you have guessed the answer very, because this is a very simple question. A fluid matrix is present in blood. Why? Because blood consists of 55% of the plasma, and plasma is made up of water. Okay, so here you have discussed about, we have discussed about all the questions related to muscle tissue and specialized connective tissue, and some questions of connective tissue. In coming classes we are going to discuss about nervous tissue questions, exercises, and we are going to start with the new chapter, that is immunity. So stay tuned with us and do revise whatever we are learning in the class immediately, so that you never forget these type of questions. Okay, thank you so much. I am Dr. Vaishnavi, have taken the class about animal tissue, and tomorrow we are going to discuss about immunity as well as some questions on nervous system.